Ever get caught off guard, like right in the middle of a sunny day, and suddenly you just have to sneeze? It's like, bam, out of nowhere. Well, you're not alone, trust me.
Hmm.
And that's what we're diving into today, this whole ACHOO syndrome thing, or as some people like to call it, the photic sneeze reflex. Why is it such a mystery? We've got some research lined up, so let's just jump right in.
So we've all been there, right? Sun comes out, sudden brightness, and it's like sneeze city.
Hmm.
But it's not always the sun, is it? Like, I've noticed it with headlights at night, when they're like really bright. Or even camera flashes, those get me every time. Even those crazy bright LEDs that everyone's using these days. It's like our bodies just can't handle that sudden burst of light.
You know, it's really interesting because for something that happens so often to so many people, we still don't fully understand why. I know, right? It's not every day you come across something so common that has scientists stumped.
I think it just goes to show how incredibly complex our nervous systems really are. But there are two main theories that we're working with, and they both basically revolve around how our bodies try to process or maybe even misinterpret sensory information. So the first theory focuses on the optic nerve. That's the one responsible for carrying all the visual information from your eyes to your brain, right? And the thinking is that when there's like a really sudden increase in light intensity, it's possible that the brain gets a little confused. It might misinterpret that signal as some kind of irritant in the nose.
Hmm.
And what do we do when we have an irritant in our nose? We sneeze.
It's like our brain is basically hitting the wrong button.
Yeah.
So, oh, bright light must be something up my nose. Better get rid of it.
Exactly. Now, the other theory is all about tears. So light hits your eyes, and that stimulates tear production. And of course, those tears, they don't just disappear. They drain right down into our nasal passages. And the idea is that maybe that drainage could cause some irritation. And irritation, well, you know what happens next.
A sneeze. So we've got two perfectly plausible explanations, but no definitive answer. You know, this whole thing reminds me of when I was a kid and I was obsessed with magic tricks.
Yeah.
Like I just had to know how they did it, but no one would tell me.
Well, in a way, the human body is kind of like a magic trick, isn't it? We keep discovering new things about it all the time, but there are still so many secrets waiting to be revealed. But maybe instead of getting bogged down in the why, we should focus on what we do know about this whole sneezing reflex thing.
Okay, I like that. So let's dive into the facts. From a genetics standpoint, what's the deal with ACO syndrome?
Well, one thing we can say for sure is that this photic sneeze reflex, it's definitely genetic. So if one of your parents has it, there's a 50-50 chance you might have inherited it too. It's likely what we call autosomal dominant.
Okay, for those of us who might need a little refresher on our genetics 101, what does autosomal dominant actually mean?
So think of it like inheriting brown eyes. If one of your parents carries the gene for brown eyes, you only need to inherit one copy of that gene from them for it to show up in your own DNA.
So it's like a one-parent wonder gene. If they're prone to sun sneezes, you might be too. I can just imagine a family reunion with everyone lined up facing the sun. Pure chaos.
Exactly. And speaking of misconceptions, there's one in particular we came across in the research you provided that we should probably clear up.
Oh, lay it on me.
Honestly, just because you have this reflex doesn't mean you're allergic to sunlight. It's not an immune response like you'd see with a pollen allergy. It's more of a quirk of the nervous system, a little signal misfire, not a full-blown allergic reaction.
So no need to invest in a hazmat suit for those sunny days then.
Not quite. But speaking of risks, I know we often think of sneezing as harmless, maybe even a bit funny.
True, true. A sneeze is usually more of an ACHOO moment than an oh no moment. But I have a feeling that's not always the case with ACHOO syndrome, is it? There must be times when a sneeze, especially an unexpected one, could be more than just a minor inconvenience.
You're absolutely right. There are times when it can be downright dangerous.
Okay, so when we're talking about HO syndrome, what kind of risky situations are we talking about?
Well, just picture this. You're driving, and you're coming out of a really long tunnel, sun's shining bright, and bam, sudden sneeze. Or let's say you're a pilot up in the air dealing with these quick light changes. Not exactly ideal, right?
No, not at all. It's kind of scary when you think about it.
It is, and that's why it's so important for people to be aware of this whole thing. Even though it seems like such a small thing, right? A sneeze.
It's one of those things you don't really think about until it becomes a problem.
Exactly. And it's not just about everyday situations either. Let's say you're about to have surgery or some other medical procedure, something where bright lights are involved, or even anesthesia. It's super important to tell your doctor about your ACHO syndrome.
So they can be prepared just in case you start sneezing uncontrollably in the middle of surgery.
Exactly. You don't want them to be caught off guard.
Yeah, that's definitely something you want to mention beforehand. Hey, Doc, by the way, if I start sneezing when you shine that light in my eyes, it's not you, it's my weird brain.
Huh. Exactly. But you know what I find really fascinating about this whole thing? It's not just about the sneezing itself. Studying ACHOO syndrome could actually help us understand much bigger neurological issues.
Okay, now that's what I'm talking about. We're going from sneezing in the sun to potentially unlocking some major medical mysteries. Tell me more.
Well, think about it for a second. ACHOO syndrome is all about these misfiring signals in the brain, right? And there are other conditions out there, much more serious ones, where that same kind of misfiring is happening. Epilepsy, for example.
So by studying something as common as a sneeze, researchers might be able to figure out ways to help people with much more complex conditions.
Exactly. It's all connected. The hope is that by understanding how these sensory signals get crossed, how to maybe even control them, we could develop more effective treatments for those conditions.
That's incredible when you really think about it. This tiny little thing, a sneeze, could hold the key to some major breakthroughs.
It just goes to show you the human body is full of surprises. And sometimes the most unexpected things can lead to the most amazing discoveries.
So true. So we've talked a lot about the science behind ACHOO syndrome,
Yeah.
the genetics, the potential risks. But I think it's important to remember that for most people, it's really not a big deal. It's just one of those funny little quirks that makes us human.
Exactly. For every person who finds it annoying or even a little dangerous, there are probably just as many who find it kind of endearing.
Like, oh, there goes so-and-so sneezing at the sun again.
Yeah.
It's part of what makes them them.
Exactly. It's all part of the rich tapestry of human experience.
I like that, the rich tapestry of human experience. Well, I think that about wraps it up for this deep dive into ACHOO syndrome. And we busted that myth about it being a sun allergy. It's not like you're breaking out in hives at the beach or anything. It's all about those crossed wires in the nervous system, right?
Exactly. It's not an immune system freak out. It's more like a little brain hiccup.
And even though we haven't cracked the code on the root cause,
Hmm.
we know for sure that ACHOO syndrome is genetic.
Mhm.
So if you've got a parent who turns into a human sneeze machine every time they step out on a sunny day, well, now you know who to thank.
And remember, for some people, it's not just the sun that sets them off. We're talking any kind of bright light, camera flashes, car headlights, even those super bright LED bulbs everyone seems to have in their homes these days.
It's like a surprise sneeze party waiting to happen.
Yeah.
But in all seriousness, if you find yourself doing the ACHO shuffle whenever you encounter a sudden burst of brightness, you are most definitely not alone.
It's way more common than you might think, and for the vast majority of people, it's nothing to worry about. Just one of those quirky things our bodies do.
Which I guess kind of makes you wonder, how many other little quirks do we all experience every day that might hold clues to even bigger scientific discoveries?
It's an intriguing thought, isn't it? There's still so much we don't know about the human body.
It's like the world is full of these tiny mysteries just waiting to be unraveled. Well, that wraps up our deep dive into the fascinating world of ACHO syndrome. We've explored the science, the genetics, even the potential risks, all thanks to that intriguing research you brought to the table. Remember to keep those questions coming because we'll keep exploring the mysteries, both big and small, that make our world so fascinating. Until next time.